I'm Emma, and E is for electro, M is for magnetic.
And A. So anyway, she's been doing astrology. She tells me for 30 years. I can't believe she's that old. And so I'll hand the microphone over to you and give a voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I'm 55 years old, so I've been doing astrology since 25 approximately. And I apologize for reading my lecture because English is not my native language, so in order to get over what I want in half an hour, I decided to just, read it more or less. So, dear all, I've come here to participate in the research into the true nature of our universe. I will start by presenting some basic facts about astrology, which has been in the later centuries subject to manifold misconceptions and misrepresentations. And I will continue by sharing some of my original research into the interconnectedness between the Earth and the rest of our solar system. I will speak of the weather, earthquakes, and other changing conditions in nature and society as related to the phenomena created by the interactions between the Sun, the Moon, the Earth, and the planets. I will present new vistas of research that I consider capable of influencing the process of redefining the true nature of our Sun. And finally, I aim at explaining why the theory of the electrical universe could be a viable explanation for the phenomena which have been since ancient times called astrological. Because of the shift that was created between astronomy and astrology in the 17th century, astrology needs advanced science to explain its postulate, today more than ever. I will be so bold even to say that the science needs astrology to be able to delve even deeper into that big mystery called our existence. What are the forces that connect everything in the space? What kind of universe do we live in? Is science finally getting closer to supporting the claims of astrology, even without being conscious of it? The conventional hardcore scientists claim that planets can't influence the life on Earth because their gravity is too weak. Astrology, in their view, is therefore impossible. But no astrologer has ever said or believed that planetary workings have anything to do with gravity. We also don't speak of magic rays coming down here from up there. We only see interconnectedness. We only observe and confirm correlations. Astrology is the study of universal order. The basic philosophical premise of astrology is that everything up there in our cosmos is connected with everything down here on Earth. As above, so below is an age-old astrological saying. But although our findings are hugely impressive and fascinating, we don't know how or why things work as they do. What are the physical, natural forces that make for this interconnectedness? When I first heard of the electric universe concept, I was struck by how acutely the claims of those scientists fit in with the astrology's conception of reality. In the 2017 Thunderbolt Conference speakers list, Mr. James Ryder's speech was introduced by this sentence. He will show you that the new discoveries are profoundly changing our understanding of the universe, and that when we try to pick anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else, leading us to realize the interconnectedness of all things. Wow, this is exactly what astrology has been claiming ever since antiquity. But we are now at a stage when we could finally find the missing link and a credible explanation for obvious facts. Astrology is focused on how the suns, the moons, and planetary ever-changing positions are mirrored by the ever-changing conditions on planet Earth. The ancient stargazers did not invent astrology because of some internal, uneducated belief in some external, magical forces influencing our lives, but by observing how the heavenly bodies partook in the formation of weather. Such knowledge was crucial to their survival. In order to know when to expect rains, floods, drought, or excessive heat, they were looking for patterns in the sky. They found, for example, that when a new or a full moon took place close to Saturn, especially along the horizontal or vertical axis for a certain location, the weather would get worse and temperatures would drop. But if Jupiter or Venus partook in the formation of weather, this would get unusually warm. The moon was indicative of rain, while Mars warned of thunder, but also of excessive heat, especially when combined with the sun. Was this a fancy? It surely wasn't, because it still works today, in the same manner as it has always worked. Take, for example, the most recent full moon, which incidentally was conjuncting Saturn, the planet of cold. Picture 2 shows the opposition between these two bodies. The sun and moon are in opposition, not full moon, as probably everyone here knows.
Is the Earth in the center?
The Earth is in the center,
Okay.
yes. This is the astrological circle, the zodiacal circle, and these bodies are measured in celestial longitude, which is a measurement in the ecliptic coordinate system starting at 0 areas eastwards along the circle of 360 degrees. So this is simplified picture of the heavens, of course. Just only the longitudes are shown here. Okay, no latitudes, no declinations, nothing. But this is one geocentric system of measurement. So, as you certainly note, the full moon, sun, and the moon are opposed to each other. Here is the moon very close to Saturn. This is the symbol for Saturn. And the sun is on the opposite side. This full moon configuration was exactly aligned with the horizontal axis, which is this, see? Horizontal axis of Madrid, Spain. Therefore, we would expect the temperatures to drop there around the full moon, okay? Well, the temperatures in Madrid were already reaching as high as 37 degrees Celsius in late June. Somewhere around here, I must take my glasses down. You can surely see better than me. Well, here the temperature reaching 37, you see, on the 24th of June, excuse me. Only to drop significantly around the full moon. You see here? This was the full moon time here. So around the full moon, the temperatures dropped, reaching as low as 26 on July 1st. So the temperature change was around 10 degrees Celsius. Now let us look at the opposite example, that of a sudden strong temperature rise. The most radical of those are the so-called heat bursts. A heat burst is a rare atmospheric phenomenon characterized by gusty winds along with a rapid increase in temperature and decrease in dew point. Heat bursts typically occur during nighttime and are associated with decaying thunderstorms. Now, an astrologer would expect the previous new or a full moon to be closely aligned with planets producing warmth and heat, those being Jupiter, Mars, and Venus. This picture shows such a lunation taking place in Hobart, Oklahoma on 4th of July 2016. You can see Jupiter exactly on the lower midheaven here with the new moon. This is new moon when the moon is conjunct the sun, in longitude, of course. So with the new moon conjunct Venus, hang on, and trine Mars, this is an aspect which was conjunct vertex. This is another, vertex is another important sensitive astronomical point. We have like 6 points in this circle, astronomical points which are sensitive because when the planets are on them, their energy is somehow easily transmitted down to our Earth. We have Jupiter, Mars, conjuncting 2 of those astronomical points, and new moon, which was close to the ascendant and conjunct another planet producing warmth. This was Venus. So this planetary combination produced an extreme heat burst on July 6 to 7. The temperature rose from 27 degrees Celsius just before 11 p.m., July 6, to 41 degrees Celsius at 12:15 a.m., July 7. Another example of a heat burst with sudden and strong temperature rise is that in Calgary, which took place on the 30th and 31st July 2014. This was preceded by a new moon exactly on Jupiter. You see the exact conjunction of the Sun, the Moon, and Jupiter, the planet of high temperatures, and its square of the hot Mars. With the warm Venus on the vertex point, again we have Venus on the vertex point. A square aspect is one of those angles which are considered to combine the effects of the planets, like to draw them together, to make them working in unison. I would like to point to the gentleman who spoke before on weather, who has been doing research for a very long time, and he spoke of Saturn as bringing cold weather and Jupiter as bringing warm weather. This was only the result of his own research. So he's not an astrologer, he never did astrology. So this is like two different methods of coming to very similar results. Only that astrologers have been claiming this for thousands of years. Thank you. Now these are just tidbits of my extensive weather research. Astrometeorology, which must be wine, sorry. Must be a glass of wine. Is just one of the branches of astrology that brings the interconnectedness down to a very solid actual experience. And I'm thoroughly convinced of its credibility. But you might have doubts, of course. But let us say that you would do your own research and come to the same conclusions, which you undoubtedly would, of course. You, as scientists, would be faced with the same question. Why does Saturn stand for coldness? And why Jupiter for warmth? And why Mars for extreme warmth? Jupiter as a planetary body is as cold as Saturn. The average temperature of both is about minus 150 degrees Celsius, whereas Mars's average temperature is minus 62, but can get as low as minus 165. So what is it that is transmitted to our planet? Gravity has nothing to do with it. It is just too small and does not convey that, or let us say, closely nothing, because you know that it exists, of course. But it is just too small and does not convey the qualitative contents of those influences. So could it be electricity? I am not a scientist, so excuse me if I will be totally off here, but if it is electromagnetic activity, could there be certain variations in the frequency ranges of those planets' electromagnetic waves? Or something due to different masses of planets and their varying distances from planet Earth? Could such an explanation for planetary influences be at least faintly viable? This is the big question that I, as an astrologer, am posing to science. So the research of weather and other natural phenomena links with the solar-lunar Earth positions has been sadly neglected by modern science. In September of last year, a Japanese team of scientists found that tides, which arise from the gravitational interaction between the Earth and the Moon, can cause changes that may trigger earthquakes. They said that particularly large earthquakes tend to occur near to a time of seasonable tidal stress, which is often triggered by full or new moons. Their discovery was soon debunked by some more serious research into the new full moon phenomena, led by the US Geological Survey researcher Susan Huff, who matched the dates and lunar phases of 204 magnitude 8 or higher earthquakes dating back to the 1600s. She found that the incidence of earthquakes had no relationship between the position of the Moon or the Sun relative to Earth. The data are completely random, said she. She was absolutely right, as far as the lunar phases go. My own research, based on close to 80,000 earthquakes, magnitude 5 or higher, confirms this, as I will shortly show you, but her claim is nevertheless wrong, because it is based on false premises. Namely, lunar phases are by far not the only Moon-Sun-Earth phenomena. For a thorough research of how these bodies interact at the time of earthquakes, other phenomena would have to be considered, like the Moon's apogees, perigees, declinations, and its aspects to its own nodes. And not only that, many other celestial phenomena would have to be researched. We astrologers have noticed that planet Uranus, for example, is strongly associated with earthquake formation. But due to lack of time and financial means, and particularly due to the complexity of the factors that would have to be considered in such research, a consistent and thorough statistics is sadly lacking. Now the table shows the part results of my ongoing earthquake research based on 79,017 earthquakes of magnitude 5 or higher, which took place in 116 years time span from 1900 to 2015. Because celestial phenomena are a process which takes some time, I took a 28 hours orb of influence with 24 hours on each side of the exact time of any celestial phenomena involved in the research. Every earthquake occurring within that time span would be considered to fit the condition. All the 8 lunar phenomena, lunar monthly phenomena, that is, are listed on the left, and on the right are the percentages of earthquakes that took place during any phenomenon. The table shows the values in the descending order, showing that the new moon is the most negligible lunar phenomenon partaking in earthquake formation. On the other hand, there is a more significant increase in earthquakes at the times of the lunar crossings of its nodes. As the next table shows, close to 17% of all earthquakes take place when the moon is either on its ascending or its descending node. For the true statistical possibility of an earthquake taking place at any of the lunar phenomena, more advanced calculations would have to be done, of course. These values would have to be matched against all-time values and so on. I have been trying hard to do this, but neither me nor my computer help have had the brains to figure it out. It was horrible, a very difficult attempt on my side, at least. Well, whatever. I will have to spend more time and more money to get to the final meaningful result. But what I wanted to show you by this research is that for a true evaluation of the interaction between the celestial bodies and natural phenomena, many more criteria need to be employed, as has so far been the case. Now to a lighter theme, okay? I know that many of you thought, well, astrology, that must be fun. So I'm going to introduce you the zodiac as an interlude before another piece of research. Now, contrary to popular belief, astrology does not deal with the stars and constellations. There is basically just one star that we are interested in, this being the Sun, the star of our solar system. The Sun's apparent path, yearly path, on the celestial sphere is called ecliptic. And the main body of astrology deals with how the ecliptic influences our lives. The ecliptic is divided into 12 equal parts, which form the zodiac. The zodiac has nothing to do with the constellations. The whole of Western astrological literature of the last 2,000 years speaks of the zodiac as the belt of the sky formed by the Sun's annular path around the Earth. This path has 4 turning points, the 2 equinoxes and the 2 solstices. These are equinoxes and these are both solstices. At both equinoxes, the Sun crosses the celestial equator, whereas at both solstices, the Sun reaches either its highest or the lowest point in the sky. That is relative to the celestial equator, of course, because, as you know, declination is the measurement north and south of the equator, and it is due to this. It is the consequence of the sun being like 23.5 currently degrees. What's the word?
Off, tilt.
The tilt of the sun. Yeah. As for the and all the four sun's turning points. Well, here the sun crosses the equator from south to the north. Okay, here from north to the south. Now all these turning points equate with the beginnings of the four so-called cardinal signs. Those being Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Each quarter is then divided into 3 equal parts, reflecting the nature's rhythm of approximately 12 lunations in 1 year of time. Thus we get the 12 zodiacal signs, reflecting the 12 developmental stages in the life of nature and in the life of man, who is the nature's most evolved living entity. Western astrology developed in the northern hemisphere, where the equinox taking place on 21st of March each year introduces spring. From then on, the sun reaches higher above the horizon each day. Days get longer, and the increased amount of light and warmth enables the earth to start a new cycle of growth. The ram, Aries in Latin, pushing forward and fighting with its horns, has always embodied courage, boldness, and self-initiative. In ancient times, rams were the first animals to be let out on the fields in early spring. It is only logical and understandable then that the first spring sign was named after this animal. As soon as the sun reaches its highest point in the sky, it starts to recede in its course, similarly to the crab, Cancer, which moves sideways, like Cancer. The crab is also a water animal, and in the system of elements, Cancer is the first water sign, symbolizing the source of life and fertility. On the autumnal equinox, the days and nights are exactly equal again. And this part of the sun's cycle has therefore been named after a perfectly balanced scales. The sign of Libra starts on the first day of autumn equinox. The autumn sets in, and on the day of the winter solstice, the days are shortest and the nights are longest. The mountain goat, or Capricorn, is the animal that can climb highest. This symbolism corresponds to the sun, which now has to climb all the way back, like here. This is a circle, you see? This is actually a circle. If we translate this into a circle, we get, like all these 4 points in a circle. This symbolism corresponds to the sun, which now has to climb all the way back to the equator, and from there to its highest northern declination, Tropic of Cancer, like a mountain goat. The intermediate signs' names are similarly related to the sun's course of the nature's behavior in every specific stage of the sun's cycle. I have explained all this to you to make you aware how inextricably the astrologer's universe is linked to that of the physical reality of our cosmos. Here the ecliptic is pictured in the form of a circle. You see? This circle represents 1 year of time. This is 1 year of time. Projected into the space are the 12 sections called zodiacal signs, which the sun and the planets continually traverse, each with its own velocity. The sun, of course, needs exactly 1 year to make the route, while the moon needs only a month. Although the zodiacal circle is just one of astrology's manifold research platforms, it is that which has been in the later centuries over and over again misunderstood and ridiculed by the general public as well as academic community. Among the many misconceptions circling the media and thereby being infiltrated into the people's minds is not only the one that the zodiacal signs are interchangeable with the constellations, but also the one that people born under individual zodiacal signs should have similar character traits. This is not what a serious, educated astrologer will tell you, because, and this is important to understand, the signs as a 12-fold yearly energy cycle serve only as a means of understanding how the sun, the moon, and all the planets behave when traversing them. We say, for example, that the sun, when traversing areas, behaves as a direct, bold, unrestrained, youthful, quick, temperamental, self-initiating energy because of the nature which exhibits such characteristics in the first part of spring. But the same manner of behaving is attributed to the moon and all the other planets when traversing those 30 zodiacal degrees that have been termed areas, although each planet has its own intrinsic nature or the level of expression. They behave in accordance with the nature of specific signs through which they traverse, each with their own velocity. Implicit in my claim is the notion of a quality, meaning, character or contents of that which is the sun's path. Ecliptic is an imaginary line, but it looks like this line carries an energy which the sun is continually creating along its path. It seems like the space would carry some kind of memory of the sun. The space I am speaking of cannot be empty, because emptiness cannot have a character, nor contents, nor memory. If astrology's claims are correct, then space must be filled with information similarly to the information that is distributed through wireless communication media. As I am at the Electric Universe conference, let me tell you that in astrology, electricity is associated with planet Uranus, which is the subject of a piece of research I'm going to present shortly. Uranus is said to rule the sign of Aquarius. Here in the inner circle are the symbols of signs, and the second circle are their planetary rulers. Those being planets whose innate natures have most affinity with certain signs. The planets ruling opposite signs are themselves the opposite of each other, but at the same time they exhibit a strong mutual attraction, as they are actually the two poles of the same kind of energy. For example, Aries is ruled by Mars, which represents masculinity, while the opposite sign of Libra is ruled by Venus, which stands for femininity. Similarly, Taurus and Scorpio. Taurus is ruled by Venus and Scorpio is ruled by Mars. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, the planet of mentality, movement, learning, communication and short distance travel, while the opposite sign of Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, philosophy, long distance travel and the media. Cancer is ruled by the moon, which at the most basic level stands for the conception and beginning of life, while the opposite sign of Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, the planet of age, gravity and death. Now look, Leo is ruled by the sun, which is our light and life, while the opposing sign of Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, which has ever since its discovery in the 18th century been associated with electricity. Astrology therefore seems to agree that the solar force is inextricably linked with electricity. Now the old ruler of Aquarius was Saturn, like it also ruled the Capricorn, like the both strongest winter signs. And Saturn is the symbol also of gravity. So it seems like, the new astrology has been agreeing for a couple of hundred of years that Uranus is stronger than Saturn, and that, the Uranian or the electrical force is superimposed on that of Saturn. And in mythology, Uranus was the father of Saturn, meaning he was the main guy. Yeah. Okay. Picture 10 shows the now. Not yet. Coming back to Uranus later, a bit later. I just want before I did a little bit of research, on various planetary intersections of ecliptic. And before coming to that, I would like to introduce you to the moon's nodes. Like this is Earth, and this is ecliptic. The yearly sun's path, the imaginary line that the sun makes, and this is the moon's path And where the moon crosses the ecliptic, this is the ascending, no, the moon, which is turning around the Earth, of course. And when this crosses the ecliptic, this is called from the south to the north. This is the ascending node. This is the direction in which it travels. Whereas when it crosses it from the north to the south, this is called the descending node. And there is a 5-degree latitude between them. So that the moon, I will show you later in a diagram how this looks. The moon goes up and down. Ecliptic, it's called celestial latitude. Now, at eclipses, the new or a full moon are on or close to these nodes. And eclipses are so called because those lunations happen on the ecliptic. The meeting of the sun's, moon's, and earth's paths produces strong vibrational fields which do not pass unnoticed on planet Earth. And it's the same with the planets. Planets are not in the same line with the sun. So the picture we saw in the circle, you know, that circle that I showed you in the beginning of my presentation, only showed the longitude, just one measurement, but we have others. And planets have latitudes. They travel north and south of the ecliptic all the time. Now the zero value here is the ecliptic. It's not shown here because I think I have, well, it doesn't matter. See the zero, and here are the latitudes. Hang on, I think it's 10. I took the 10 degrees, I think. Yes. Pluto can reach as far as 17, okay, but because this is the year, this is for this year, 2018, Pluto is right on the ecliptic. It's very, very close to the ecliptic here. Pluto is very slow. You see the moon? So that's why I took only 10 degrees latitude, the 10 degrees graph. Well, anyway, this is the moon going up and down, up to 5 degrees and something every month, going, where it crosses the ecliptic, these are the moon's node, the descending node, ascending node, descending, ascending, and so on. And these are, please don't be put away by this graph. You don't need to really understand it. It's just to show how planets rise up and down from the sun's level, from the ecliptic, and of course, the slower the planet, the more gradual the decrease or increase. This is Uranus, for example, which is very slow. This is Neptune, and this is Mars. Mars reaches 6 degrees this year in August, which suggests, I think, very much drought and in some locations, very hot temperature. I think it was the lowest. It got like 6 to the south. It was in 1970, and it was a year of extreme heat. But this is more complicated than that, so don't take this as a prediction. It also much depends on the various climates and so on. So now what I'm going to show you is the research I've done with Uranus. Before going to this part, I would just like to tell you that, just wait with this. I would just like to tell you that I've done this research of, you know, how the slow planets, what happens on planet Earth in society, in nature, in like in the weather, in those periods when those slow planets actually cross the ecliptic or the celestial equator, which is another sphere which is sensitive to those, you know, currents which somehow come down from the planets to us. And it seems like the ecliptic, the sun's path, which carries some kind of capacity to memorize the sun's energy, it seems as if it would translate planetary energy down to us. So those years when the planetary path cuts the ecliptic are very special years. I've done a long piece of research which is published on my website, which I will show you later at the end, is about Pluto. I researched 1,500 years of history, and the results were just fascinating. But now back to Uranus. I have prepared Uranus for this lecture, for this presentation, because I just wanted to do something new. I don't want to repeat myself, so whatever is there on the website, everyone can read, okay? And I've done the same with Uranus, something similar with Uranus. Now Uranus, every planet in astrology has its psychological meaning, a certain meaning in society, in nature, in science, everywhere. Like each planet is not a symbol, because a symbol is not appropriate word. Or let's say every planet encompasses, embodies certain fields of experience. And Uranus stands for sudden events and shocks, individuality, freedom, independence, as for human psychology, originality, non-conformity, eccentricity, higher mind or genius, revolt, uprising, revolution, which of course all come from non-conformity and a inner search for individuality and freedom. And in nature, Uranus stands for electricity and lightning, for earthquakes, for explosions, for scientific experiments and discoveries, aviation and space travel, telecommunications and computer technology. These are main fields of Uranus. Now my research, what I wanted to see is if my hypothesis was that in those years that the Uranus influence on planet Earth should be very strong. Strongly Uranian events should take place, processes or events. So I looked into, now let me tell you, this is 250 years of time, okay? This goes from 1750 to 2000, okay? So this is 1777, 1870, 1861, 1901, 1945 and 1984. And some years around the exact year of the crossing are already show the sensitivity to the planetary influence, okay? So we would expect some strongly Uranian processes to take place already in maybe 1775 or 76. And what happened in 1776? On 4th of July 1776, we had American Declaration of Independence. So independence, this is the Uranian theme. And this was a very big event, of course, which was at the base of all the future American history, you know. The Americans, as you probably know, declared independence from Great Britain, because they were not happy with the taxes and stuff. This was the main event of that time. Now in 1817, this is the next crossing, 1817, can you see that? There was a similar uprising in Brazil, the Pernambucan Revolt, and there was the Paika Rebellion in India. India also, for the first time in the history, you can check the internet, this was the first time in the history that the Indians rebelled against, you know, their, I think it was the British government, yeah. There was the Argentinian claimed their independence. Frankenstein was published. Frankenstein as the first horror novel. Horror novel?
Yes.
Yeah. Which has to do with science fiction novels. The first true science fiction novel in history. And science fiction is the Uranian stuff, you know. And then there was like the explosions, and because Uranus is strongly linked with earthquakes, we would expect stronger volcanoes and earthquakes to erupt at those times. And there was the Mount Tambora eruption, which was a very strong thing. I will show you a bit later. And then there was in 1901. Australia, another big continent, claimed independence and got it. So first it was in 1767 was America, and then there was Australia in 1901. So at the next Uranus crossing, exactly in that year. There was the first New York Stock Exchange market crash. So sudden, unexpected event that somehow turned, you know, made a big, of course, it was a big event in the economics and stuff. So the first powered flight, you know, do you remember when I told you that aviation and space travel are associated with Uranus? The first powered flight was not done by the Wright brothers, but there was another guy who claimed, you know, to make the first flight in exactly 1905 or 1901. And then there was the Mount Pelee eruption, another big volcano event which had dire consequences. 1984 is the next crossing. Nuclear bombs were dropped on Hiroshima, and the world's first general-purpose electronic computer was made, which was ENIAC. The computer geeks here will probably...
Yeah. ENIAC.
ENIAC.
Yeah, we know ENIAC.
ENIAC, okay, thank you. And now we know that the 80s were the time of, you know, computer boom, but exactly 1984 was perhaps the most notorious or the years around that, 1983, 4, 5, for home computer boom when computers came into every home. The word cyberspace was invented. First Macintosh was sold. First HP LaserJet. 1,000 internet hosts were present at that time, and Windows 1 was released. And now we are nearing the next, well, these are the, I don't think this would interest you, but these are the deadliest, for example, eruptions of volcanoes around 1982. You know, we had like close to, I don't know, 40,000 deaths resulting from very strong volcano eruptions. This was around the Uranus crossing of the ecliptic, whereas in later years, this is up to 1945, there were no such events, or very few. In 1930, oh, this was another big time for volcanoes, and this is the future. Like Uranus will next cross the ecliptic in 2029. So this should be, you see, and the next crossing will be in 2068. So according to hypothesis, according to my research, in 2029, this is like, I put it like this way, electric universe theory becomes mainstream. You know, it will be happening in a couple of years before that. I mean, it is starting to happen now.
Emma, will that be when the Ice Age hits us, though?
Oh my goodness,
That's right.
no! Because by electric, because the science will be so much advanced by that time that we can counter, you know.
Will there be an earthquake at the same time as we become extraordinary?
Well, give me time, please. I'll go into that. But anyway, as an air traffic revolution, drone swarms and whatever they are predicting, and microchip implants. I mean, all this is going on already now, but this was just, you know, some of my whatever. But as for, you know, this year, I must tell you that this is just one measurement. Another important measurement is Uranus crossings of the celestial equator. So it's not that simple as it seems. You know, this was just the kind of research that I can do with my limited sort of means. Astrology is a vast field, and so much can be done, so much can be researched. Believe me. But my Pluto research shows even greater, more important events taking place at each of these Pluto crossings. And incidentally, this year, 2018, we are facing the Pluto crossing of the ecliptic. And it will take place sometime in October. So the last Pluto crossing was 1930. That was 1 year after the biggest stock market crash in history. And the decade of the Great Depression started in the year 1930. That was linked to Pluto, because Pluto is a planet of devastation, of death and regeneration, and all the Plutonian periods have demanded so far very many lives. So I'm not predicting doom here now. I'm just saying that on the other hand, that we are in kind of volatile period. On the other hand, Pluto also means outbreaks in science also. You know, those deep, Pluto is linked with very deep research and with scientific outbreaks as well, similarly to Uranus, because the slowest the planets are, the further they are from the Earth, the strongest influence they have. Okay, just because they are so slow. Well, anyway, let us. This is internet, like a picture of internet. Yeah. Picture here is internet based on the January 2005 data found on opti.org. Those little stars represent IP addresses, and the lines are drawn between any pair of them, signaling their interaction. Now the next picture shows a starry sky. Imagine now similar lines drawn between them, okay, as they are drawn between two IP addresses, and you will get the picture of how basically astrology works. Planets communicate with each other. Now these are stars, of course, but let us stay on the level of our solar system. Planets communicate with each other, but they also communicate with us, because all universe is hidden in each and every one of us. Now to a concluding remark. My research into astrology has brought me to a realization that there must be a force in the universe which connects everything with everything else, and that this force has a distinct logic and even some kind of impersonal consciousness. It has to have not only the consciousness of the present, but also memory of the past, and even the foreknowledge of the future.
Emma, thank you so much. That was just so fascinating. And now it's dark. We can really think about all this. I think, unless anybody's got a really, really burning question, I think we might return to some questions tomorrow, because we've still got more to come. We've got Michael Carriage's. That's pretty too dark to look at what you're doing, isn't it?
It'll be so awesome that it won't matter.
Okay. We've got that, and the dance of Venus. So, as not to mention, we've also got the telescope.
Oh yeah, the telescope. Yeah.
So I don't know how late any of you want to stay up.
What fields can we lay down in to watch the sky?
Oh, as soon as you shut the one, the horses are.
Like, were the cows out there, or?
Well, yeah, you could go. Yeah, I could show you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to say that the lunar nodes are important in the work I do, as is borne out by what she said.
Yeah, well, I think
The lunar nodes.
we should definitely return to some. I'm not saying we should.
Yes.
Because,
Yes, any questions you have, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Lucy. I forgot to thank Lucy for taking me here, because this was on your part. It was a challenge. It was what's the word?
A risk?
A risk. Thank you. It was a risk, and you are a very brave woman, and a very important woman in today's world.
very mad.
These are just my links. Thank you. So these are my links in case anyone wants to get my contacts. They're here. Maybe you will wants to see my research and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you once again. Anyway, so what are we doing outside? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's outside now, guys. It's all in the.
Did you like it? Oh, really?
Eight questions.
More methodical than what it was last
Yes. Oh, thank you. Because, thank you.
time. Ah, indeed.